Hey there, friends. You know evil never sleeps, right? Attacks to the Constitution never stop either. There's always pre-written bills sitting out there just waiting for kind of this time of year to happen in a lot of cases. Usually you see holidays or rolling into the summer where anti-gun bills are slid through or at least presented while most people are not paying attention. What I mean by that is obviously holidays, people's attention is on Christmas, whatever thing you might celebrate, gifts, dinners, functions, get-togethers, family, where it probably should be, right? I mean, we should be focusing on our family and things like that this time of year. And of course, summer rolls around, people are on vacation. That's whenever you see the crazy stuff go through, like the anti-gun bill that got passed last year. Well, here we are staring down the barrel, no pun intended, of another anti-gun bill that's being put out there. And this time, remember last year they used Uvalde to launch into their little successful bid into limiting constitutional rights? They're doing the same thing now, but they're using the Maine shooting. I say this all the time in my videos that they are waiting with bated breath and they are high-fiving each other when there are school shootings or mass shootings of some kind. They have all these bills already written. These people are not smart enough to write these bills in a 2-week period of time. We're talking about bottom feeders in Washington, D.C. We're talking about congressmen and senators who otherwise could not normally find a normal, functional job that used a series of tasks that we do on a daily basis. I know there's some doctors in there. There's bad doctors too, guys. Just because you're a doctor doesn't make you a good doctor. And there's a bunch of attorneys. Just because you're an attorney doesn't mean you're a good attorney, right? So there's a lot of incompetent people in D.C., and now we are finally, I think, the general public coming to realize that's who's making laws. These people have a new law that they're trying to push right now on the heels of the Maine rampage killing, and they're trying to tug at heartstrings right now and get this thing pushed through, and it's starting out in the Senate. Let me explain a little bit this to you. They're calling this bill the Gas-Operated Semi-Automatic Firearms Exclusion Act, or, get this is a beautiful name, the Go Safe Act. How many drunken idiots did it take late at night, sitting in a room, tossing words around, before they came up with this acronym of Go Safe, using the words Gas-Operated Semi-Automatic Firearms Exclusion Act? Just think of it. They're sitting in a room. Oh man, we need something that rhymes. We need something that makes up another word. No, that's not good enough. And then one person, probably an intern, at the back of the room, probably coming down off their high, whatever they smoked or snorted. This is DC, right? Or they were entering into their drunken stupor from the free whiskey that they got, that taxpayers paid for. And they said, I got it. What about this combination of words that it spells go safe? And they're like, yes, we can go home now and finish getting drunk at our taxpayer apartment down the road. This bill is kind of an admission by these politicians and these legislators that describing a gun based on features like their last, quote, assault weapons ban was stupid and idiotic. In other words, they talk about, oh, now we're going to design a bill that focuses on the features of a firearm, the actual technical and functional features of the firearm, rather than cosmetic features. What that means is our bill was stupid before, and we've been called out on it for the last 20 or 30 years. So now we're trying to approach this more from a technical standpoint of how the gun actually works. What they're doing is they're trying to, and again, this is at a high level that I'm talking about this. I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of it here in a minute. They're trying to say that if it is a gas-operated semi-automatic, they want to ban it. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's damn near everything out there. And you would be right. The problem is we have experts who are stupid. That's these people in DC. They know nothing about guns, and guess who they ask when they have a question? The ATF. The ATF is just as ignorant because the ATF has constantly put out rules that contradict themselves. Literally back and forth like they do with the stabilizer brace. Legal, not legal, legal, not legal, legal, not legal. Putting a rubber band on the handle makes it a machine gun. Stupid stuff like that. That's their experts. That's their team of experts. So that's who helps them put these types of bills together as far as technical data and technical wording. So they're trying to, their ultimate goal is to try to ban AR-15s based on how they function. But they're either too stupid or too smart. And they're throwing this net over darn near everything out there. Let me get more into that. They define a semi-automatic firearm as one that's meant to extract the expended cartridge, chamber the next round, prepare the firing mechanism to fire again. Okay, we'll get more into what they're talking about here in a minute, but that right there is almost every single firearm that I own falls under that category. But that's the semi-automatic portion of their definition. Let's move on to the gas-operated portion. They say the term gas-operated with respect to a semi-automatic firearm means any firearm that harnesses or traps a portion of the high-pressure gas from a fired cartridge to cycle the action. That's pretty much every gun that I have, right? It's like they're trying to separate semi-automatic and gas-operated, when the operation of the gas, in many cases, is what makes it semi-automatic. So in a lot of cases, you can't have one or the other. In many cases, if you have one, like being gas-operated, it's probably semi-automatic. But they're too stupid to understand how that works. They think they're dealing with two completely separate things here, and that one's going to be okay and one is not. They go on to further define some of the different ways that a gas-operated system works, stating that a system that traps and vents gas from either the barrel or the chamber to directly strike or impinge the bolt carrier, or slide assembly to unlock and cycle the action. Again, almost every single gun I own falls into that category, not just AR-15s. Now, of course, they go down to try to further explain others that would be involved in this. A blowback operated system that directly utilizes the expanding gas of the ignited propellant, powder acting on a cartridge case to drive the breech block or breech bolt rearward. What they're talking about there is pretty much the HK variants, the MP5, SP5, and things like that. Those types of functioning firearms. Let's move on to F, a recoil-operated system that utilizes the recoil force to unlock the breech bolt and then to complete the cycle of extracting, ejecting, and reloading. Sounds like a lot of my handguns, right? They go on to even describe parts and parts kits, the combination of parts designed to be assembled into a firearm. So now you're not going to be able to have a combination of these parts if they could be put together in order to build a semi-automatic, or like they say, gas-operated semi-automatic. And then they say the combination of parts functions to produce a gas-operated semi-automatic cycling action that was not lawfully manufactured. In other words, they're talking about their, quote, ghost guns right here. Now, what's going to happen if you have one? If you got some of these things already, right? You're going to be expected to transfer these if you want to get rid of it. Of course, they're going to offer a buyback program. Just know that. The government's going to buy back something that it never owned. Again, the elephant in the room, the question we often ask, how do you buy something back that you never had? It was never yours. How do you buy it back? And you're using my taxpayer money. Of course, they're using the burn grants for this. Again, government money, free government money to buy these things back. But if you want to transfer these things, you are going to have to surrender them to an FFL. In other words, it's going to be 2 transactions on a NICS background check, a 4473. You're going to have to transfer that firearm to the FFL. Then the FFL will have to perform a 4473 on the person that you want to transfer it to. Now, you ain't transferring it to just about anybody you want to. That's not going to happen. It has to be what they decide is okay. And their definition of a family member in this case is going to be either a spouse, a parent, a brother or sister, or child of that person, or an individual to whom that person stands in loco parentis. Any other person living in the household of that person and related to that person by blood or marriage. So that excludes probably 90-something% of other transfers. You're not transferring this or selling it to a friend, according to them. That friend doesn't live with you, not transferring it to them. Now, in their infinite wisdom, they go on to actually do us a massive favor and let us know what they're going to allow us to keep. I say that very sarcastically, so please read the tone of my voice. A, the term gas-operated semi-automatic firearm does not include any firearm designed to accept and capable of operating only with .22 caliber rimfire. They go on to talk about some of the other firearms like a single-shot rifle. They talk about single-shot shotguns, breech-loading shotgun, capacity not to exceed 2 rounds of ammunition. This is what I wanted you to see. A handgun. This is the exclusions regarding handguns. They're going to allow you to have a single-shot handgun. That seems really useful if you're getting mugged or somebody kicks your door in at 2 in the morning. Breech-loading handgun with capacity not to exceed 2 rounds of ammunition. All right, that seems really useful. Muzzle-loading or smooth-bore handgun. That's all the rage now. That's all the rage. Those old muzzle-loading and smooth-bore handguns. A bolt action to cycle the action of a handgun. Sounds like we're going back in time here as far as what they're going to allow us to have. Or double action, revolver. Again, so we're going back in time here. But the next one. A single or double action semi-automatic handgun that uses recoil to cycle the action of the handgun. So those of us that are somewhat aware of the technical makeup of a handgun and have probably done a little bit more gunsmith work than what we probably should have. In other words, disassembling things. I used to get a gun, and if it wasn't a gun that I was familiar with, guys, when I brought it home, I took it apart. I was curious why it was different than the other guns that I bought. How did it work? How did it recoil? How did it load? What did the feed ramp look like? Just different components of the firearm that I was curious about. I'm just genuinely curious about not only how it worked, but how I was going to maintain my firearm. So I've seen the insides of a whole lot of guns. We know that your guns like a CZ75 is a double action pistol. That's a double action semi-automatic handgun. And then we've got single action, which is essentially a 1911. Again, I'm oversimplifying it for the purpose of letting you understand what guns they're going to, quote, allow you to have. However, people have an argument pretty often on striker fired. Some people say that because technically 2 actions are happening when you pull a trigger of, say, a Glock or a striker fired gun, that whenever you initially pull that trigger and you pull that trigger safety, that trigger safety is moving that bar so that the gun now can fire. So some people call that a double action. Now, technically, it's not classified as a double action, but some people argue that. Some people argue that it is single action. However, there's a very good reason why that's not listed here, because that is a completely different subset of firearm out there. Again, people might argue that it's single action or double action, but technically speaking, it is a completely different style of firearm. It is not listed here in the exclusions. So your Glocks, your FNs, your 6 hours, you name it. Almost everybody out there makes a striker fired now. Those are not listed as an exclusion right here. And those do fall into the category of utilizing gases to send that slide rearward in order to eject the spent casing and to bring the next round into battery so that you can fire the gun. So as this law is written, and as this law reads, not that any of it is okay and legitimate. I'm not agreeing with one single word of it. But as this law is written, it would include all of your striker-fired pistols. Every single one of them. So looking at what they define as something that will not be legal, and I'm speaking in terms of if this bill were to pass, looking at what they describe as something that would be prohibited and something that would be exempt, they essentially say the same thing. So when something falls into both categories, what happens? The most strenuous part of the law would apply to that, right? Because these people technically are describing the same thing in what is going to be outlawed and what's not going to be outlawed. They essentially are talking about the same firearm. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, they'd never do that. We know what they mean, right? Isn't that the thing? Oh, we know what they're going to tell you, that's not what we meant. You know what we really mean. We would never do that. Really? So we're operating on the honor system now, right? So you literally will put stuff into the U.S. code as a law. But because there's a gray area in there, we're supposed to be the good guys here. We're supposed to agree with the honor system. Oh, come on, guys. You're being ridiculous. We would never include that. We're not coming after striker-fired pistols. Really? You give these people an out, and you allow them to include a gray area into any of these laws, and you're going to find out really fast how much it's going to apply to every single gun that you own. This is something that we cannot let happen. As we roll into this weekend, we cannot, and the holidays, we cannot be complacent when it comes to this. I'm going to find all these clowns that are co-signing on this bill. Again, this is originating in the Senate. The Democrats have full control of the Senate right now, or pretty much full control of the Senate. And the, quote, Republicans, who are supposed to be the gun guys, have control of the House, so it's not been through the House yet, although there's members of the House that will support this. This is something that we have got to be loud and boisterous about. Once they start creating their own classifications of what they feel like should be prohibited, then they're christening themselves as the, quote, experts. We're the experts, right? We know that we are. We are, by leaps and bounds, the experts when it comes to firearms. These people are clueless. And again, the, quote, experts that they look at for any kind of guidance, the ATF. I'd be willing to bet that people out there who are probably a first-time gun owner and have their first gun likely have more operating gun knowledge of a firearm than most of the people at the ATF. Dettelbach, by his own admission, admitted that he's no expert on firearms and is clueless about them. Yet that's who's educating these politicians. These politicians think they're right about this, but they're too stupid to read their own words to know better. More on this as it comes up, guys. I want you to be talking about this. As we roll into the weekend, share this video. Let your friends know this is what they're attempting now. It's a completely different approach to try to ban a complete, not only line of firearms like the AR-15, but it's going to have residual effects and ban, in its current wording, almost all semi-automatic pistols out there. What's the number one firearm used for self-protection out there? It ain't the AR-15. It's handguns. And the number one selling handgun probably in the world is a striker-fired semi-automatic firearm that falls under their definition of a gas-operated semi-automatic gun.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.